Imagine for a moment that everything you struggle with, every fear, every moment of self-doubt, every quiet insecurity you try to hide, is not just something to overcome, but something meant to guide you. Not a flaw, but a signal. Because most people spend their lives trying to become a better version of themselves by cutting parts away. Be less emotional, less reactive, less needy, less afraid. But what if that entire approach is backwards? What if the parts you've been trying to eliminate are actually pointing you toward who you're meant to become? This is where the idea of the shadow begins. Carl Jung described the shadow as the unconscious part of your personality that you reject or disown. It holds everything you've been told is unacceptable. Your anger, your jealousy, your fear, your desire for attention, your ambition, even your creativity. Not just the bad traits, but anything that didn't fit the version of you that felt safe to be. And here's the part most people don't realize. The shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It doesn't go away because you suppress it. It simply moves out of sight and starts influencing you from behind the scenes. Think about a moment in your life when you reacted more strongly than you expected. Maybe someone made a small comment and it stayed with you all day, or you felt irritated by someone for reasons you couldn't fully explain. In those moments, it's easy to assume the problem is out there. But more often than not, the reaction is coming from somewhere deeper. Jung once suggested that what irritates us about others can reveal something about ourselves, not in an obvious way, but in a reflective one. People don't just trigger us randomly. They mirror something we haven't fully faced. So instead of asking, why are they like this? A more powerful question becomes, why does this affect me so much? That's where awareness begins, because the shadow doesn't just show up in emotions, it shows up in patterns. The same types of relationships, the same conflicts, the same insecurities repeating in different forms. And most people never question it, they just assume that's their personality or their luck or their circumstances. But Jung believed something very different. He believed that who you are is not fixed. It's something you're still becoming. He called this process individuation, not becoming perfect, but becoming whole. And wholeness doesn't come from removing parts of yourself. It comes from integrating them. Because when you reject parts of yourself, you don't eliminate them, you divide yourself, and that division creates internal tension. You might feel it as overthinking, as self-sabotage, as hesitation when you want to move forward. One part of you wants growth, another part resists. One part wants to express, another part fears judgment. And that inner conflict quietly drains your energy. But when you start paying attention to your shadow, something shifts. Instead of reacting automatically, you begin to observe. You create a small gap between what you feel and how you respond. And in that gap, you gain control. For example, if you feel envy, instead of pushing it away, you pause and ask, what is this showing me? Envy often points towards something you want but haven't allowed yourself to pursue. If you feel anger, it might be revealing a boundary that's been crossed. If you feel fear, it might be pointing towards something meaningful, something that matters enough to scare you. Seen this way, your shadow isn't something to fight, it's something to understand. And once you begin to understand it, you start reclaiming something powerful, your attention, your energy, your direction. Now here's where it becomes even more interesting. The energy you use to suppress parts of yourself doesn't disappear. It gets redirected. It shows up as anxiety, constant distraction, or the feeling of being stuck. But when you integrate those parts, when you stop pushing them away, that same energy becomes available again. And that's where growth accelerates. Because the traits you once saw as weaknesses can transform when you understand them properly. That suppressed anger can become clarity and assertiveness. That fear can become awareness. That insecurity can become reflection and depth. You're not removing these parts, you're refining them. Think about some of the most compelling characters in storytelling, whether it's classical literature or modern films. The ones that stay with you aren't perfect. They're complex. They struggle. They face their inner conflict. And that's what makes them real. In many Western stories, the turning point isn't when the hero defeats an external enemy, it's when they confront something within themselves. That moment of internal recognition changes everything, and your life works in a similar way. Because when you begin to understand your shadow, you also begin to understand other people differently. You start noticing that people's behavior often comes from their own unresolved parts. The person who seeks constant validation may be struggling with invisibility. The person who criticizes others may be dealing with their own insecurity. And instead of reacting instantly, you begin to see patterns. That doesn't mean you tolerate everything. It means you respond with clarity instead of impulse. And that alone changes your relationships. You communicate more honestly. You stop pretending to be a version of yourself just to be accepted. And ironically, that's what creates stronger connections, because people don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. Now, let's talk about something deeper: purpose. Most people search for purpose as if it's something external, a career, a title, a milestone, but Jung saw it differently. He believed that purpose is something you uncover, not something you chase, and your shadow plays a major role in that, because often the things you avoid are directly connected to what matters most to you. The fear of being judged may be tied to a desire to express yourself. The fear of failure may be tied to something you deeply care about. The parts you've been pushing away are not random. They're connected to your direction. So instead of asking, "What should I do with my life?" a more honest question might be, "What have I been avoiding and why?" That question requires courage. But it also brings clarity, because your purpose isn't just built from your strengths. It's shaped by your struggles, your patterns, and the parts of yourself you've had to face. And finally, here's the most important realization. Working with your shadow doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming honest. It means you stop running from parts of yourself. You stop pretending to be only one thing. You accept that you're complex, and that's not a weakness. It's depth. And when you reach that point, something changes. You stop needing constant validation. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop being controlled by every reaction or emotion, not because those things disappear, but because you understand them. That's what real confidence looks like: not loud, not performative, just grounded. So the next time you feel discomfort, whether it's fear, anger, or insecurity, don't rush to escape it. Look at it. Ask what it's trying to show you, because hidden inside that moment might be something important, something real, something that's been waiting for you to notice it. Your shadow isn't there to hold you back. It's there to show you what you haven't seen yet. And once you start seeing it, you don't just understand yourself better. You start becoming someone you were never able to be before. Which idea in this video resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring psychology and human nature, consider subscribing for more. Stay curious, stay awake, and keep thinking.